A quiet island where time slows without permission. From the air, the island looks insignificant. A thin line of land surrounded by endless water. No monuments, no urgency, no reason for time to behave differently here. And yet it does. People arrive expecting silence. What they don't expect is duration. Days stretch, weeks feel unmeasured, and aging, strangely, seems to hesitate. To understand why this place matters today, we need to look at how speed reshaped modern life. We live inside acceleration. Deadlines compress days. Notifications fracture attention. Time is no longer experienced. It is consumed, and this island exists almost entirely outside that system. For generations, life here followed the same rhythm. Fishing at first light, rest at midday, conversation at dusk. Nothing optimized, nothing rushed. The island did not reward speed. It ignored it. At first, outsiders assumed the longevity stories were exaggerated. Folklore, tourism, mythology. But records told a different story. People live long lives here. Not dramatically, not heroically, quietly. What unsettled researchers was not the age itself. It was a consistency. Fewer spikes, fewer sudden declines, fewer stress-related endings. Time seemed smoother. Residents did not speak about longevity. They spoke about weather, about tides, about who needed help that day. Life was not segmented into productivity and rest. It flowed. Clocks existed, but they were not obeyed. Schedules existed, but they were flexible. Urgency was reserved for storms, not calendars. People aged visibly, but not abruptly. Strength faded gradually. Roles shifted naturally. Elders were not removed from life. They were repositioned within it. Visitors noticed something unsettling. After weeks on the island, they felt different. Sleep deepened, thoughts slowed, anxiety softened, as if their internal clocks were recalibrating. But this calm was not accidental. It was enforced by geography, limited access, limited resources, limited distraction. The island did not allow excess. And that is where tension begins. Because what slows time also resists modern life, and resistance invites disruption. This island was never frozen in time. It was simply moving at a pace the outside world forgot how to match. And once that difference was noticed, time itself became the question. As attention grew, the island began to change. Not immediately, not dramatically, but subtly, the way tides reshape a shoreline. Visitors arrive with questions. How do people live this long? What do they eat? What is the secret? The islanders listened politely, but had no answers to offer, because there was no method to explain, only a way of being. Researchers tried to isolate variables: diet, genetics, sun exposure, physical activity. Each factor mattered. None explained the whole. What they struggled to measure was absence. The absence of hurry. The absence of constant comparison. The absence of noise. On the island, stress arrived differently. It appeared during storms, during loss, during uncertainty. Then it left. It did not linger. It was not replayed. People did not rehearse catastrophe. They responded when necessary, then returned to rhythm. Time was not divided into work and recovery. Work itself carried recovery. Movement was purposeful, but never extreme. Rest was earned naturally, not scheduled. Elders remained visible. They were consulted. They were included. They were not sidelined once productivity slowed. Aging here did not equal disappearance. But outside influence crept in. Faster boats, stronger connections, screens that ignored daylight. With them came schedules, deadlines, expectations. Young people began to leave. Those who stayed felt pressure to modernize. Efficiency replaced continuity. Speed replaced efficiency. And slowly, the island's greatest asset became fragile. Because pace, once altered, is difficult to restore. The numbers did not collapse overnight. They bent. Lifespan shortened by years, not decades. Enough to be noticed. Enough to matter. The paradox became clear. Longevity here was not preserved by isolation alone. It was preserved by shared agreement. an unspoken contract to move slowly together. Once that contract weakened, time resumed its familiar acceleration. The island was not losing years. It was losing rhythm. And that loss raised a troubling question. If time slows when we protect it, why do we surrender it so easily elsewhere? The conflict reached its sharpest edge when the island tried to adapt, not resist, not reject the outside world, but integrate it. Modern tools promise relief, easier work, better communication, more opportunity. And at first, they delivered. Fishing became faster. Logistics improved. Emergencies were handled more efficiently. Life felt lighter. But something else changed. Conversations shortened. Meals became segmented. Days fractured into tasks instead of flows. Elders noticed a shift before anyone else. They felt it in their bodies. Not illness, acceleration. A sense that days were passing without being inhabited. Roles blurred. Experience mattered less than speed. Patience lost value. Attention scattered. This is where the illusion broke. Longevity was never stored in habits. It lived in tempo, in how slowly life demanded response, in how fully moments were occupied. Stress returned in a new form. Not acute, chronic, low-level urgency without resolution. The kind that never leaves. People slept less deeply, moved with distraction, rested without recovery. Time was present, but then researchers documented the change. Same island, same people, different internal clocks. Health markers shifted subtly, not enough to alarm, enough to confirm. The emotional peak arrived quietly, because no one could point to a single mistake. No villain, no collapse, just cumulative speed. The island had not been corrupted. It had been synchronized, pulled into the tempo of the world around it. And that realization carried weight. Because if time can be reshaped by agreement, then aging may not be fixed. It may be negotiated. The question was no longer whether the island could return. It was whether anyone would choose to slow down enough to try. Because once speed feels normal, stillness begins to feel like loss. The final understanding was close, and it would not be comforting. The realization did not arrive as regret. It arrived as recognition. The island had never controlled time. It had protected it. By refusing to divide life into fragments, by resisting unnecessary urgency, by moving together instead of faster alone. Once that protection weakened, time behaved as it always does. It accelerated, not violently, gradually, until no one noticed the loss, until it was complete. Longevity here was never about geography. It was about agreement. An unspoken decision to let days unfold fully, to finish conversations, to let work end when it was done, to allow rest to actually restore. When that agreement dissolved, nothing dramatic followed. People still lived long lives, just not as long, not as evenly, not as gently. The lesson is uncomfortable because it offers no miracle, no pill, no shortcut, only responsibility. Time slows when we stop interrupting it. Aging softens when urgency loosens its grip. Health stabilizes when rhythm replaces pressure. This island was not special because it escaped modern life. It was special because it delayed it, long enough to reveal what pace alone can shape. And now, that knowledge exists outside the island, carried by stories, waiting for choice. Because the question is no longer whether time can slow. It is whether we are willing to let it. Subscribe to join the journey. A quiet